50% under current law within a few decades. What Obama's fiscal policies have done is to move that up at least a decade. And what the CBO projects is stagnation. This economy will experience retardation of economic growth and stagnation because you cannot finance that level of spending, and it doesn't matter how you do it, raise taxes, borrow the money, drive up interest rates, or just print money, you are going to have a negative effect on economic growth. You will stagnate our economy with current policies. So, we're on a path to what I call Europeanizing our economy. And what the European economies did over much of the post-Second World War period with these types of policies, socialist policies, was destroy their economies and bring retardation and stagnation of economic growth. The European countries have figured this out, and in the last couple of decades, they've begun to pull back from some of those socialist policies and those terrible monetary and fiscal policies. We don't have to wait around and watch our economy stagnate. We don't have to do that. We have a great advantage over the European countries. And the advantage we have is our Constitution. Because what our Constitution says is there are certain specific enumerated powers that the federal government should exercise. Everything else is left to the states and us as individual citizens. The 10th Amendment preserves a federalist system. Well, preserving this system is not just a matter of states' rights, it's a matter of preserving our individual liberty. And what's happening is that 7 states have now passed resolutions challenging the violation of the 10th Amendment by the federal government. 30 states have introduced resolutions of this sort. Arizona and Florida this week just introduced legislation that will preserve an individual choice in health care and prevent a single-payer system from being imposed on those states. Montana has passed legislation that says a gun produced and sold in Montana will be subject to Montana law, not federal law. There is a rebellion going on in this country in which people are now, they see the danger, and we are now working to preserve this. I serve on a working group with the American Legislative Exchange Council on fiscal federalism and state sovereignty. And we're bringing legislators from all over the country to address this issue. Well, citizens need to take this opportunity to impose a fiscal constitution on the federal government. This is an idea that Friedman was the first to propose, a very important idea that he supported throughout his lifetime. And basically, if we can't impose monetary rules on the Fed, we should break it up. We should break up this monopoly and not let it control our financial system and our money supply. If the federal government can't control its fiscal policies, which it clearly can't, what we need to do is impose rules, fiscal rules on Congress, on the federal government. And I have formed a group called voteontaxes.org that you can find on the website. And basically what we want to do is impose the same fiscal rules on the federal government that we have successfully imposed on state governments like Colorado. Every state has to balance the budget. Every state has a debt limit. Most states have a good tax and spending limit like Tabor. And most states prevent unfunded liabilities. We are putting this together in the form of a fiscal discipline amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And believe me, we are having some traction on this. Well, many people say, well, what if you actually are successful? Of course, under Article 5 of the Constitution, if we can get 2/3 of the states to propose this type of fiscal discipline, these fiscal discipline rules as an amendment, Congress is required to call a constitutional convention to enact this. And then if we get 3/4 of the states to pass that amendment, it becomes part of the Constitution. Now, many of our critics say, well, if you hold this constitutional convention, doesn't that open it up to anything? And the answer is no. You can put safeguards in to prevent that from happening. And of course, my response to this is, if you think there's a danger in a constitutional convention, take a look at what's been happening for the last 2 decades. The Congress, the federal government, has violated the 10th Amendment. It has encroached upon states' rights. The federal government's acts in these areas have been sanctioned by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court every other day violates the Constitution, at least in terms of original intent. That's the danger our society faces. So, as you can see, I've acquired a little Friedman's passion about this stuff, so I encourage you to, this is important stuff. You need to get involved, and you need to support these organizations that are fighting this fight that Friedman started many years ago, this tradition of capitalism and free enterprise and individual liberty. And you can do that by supporting his Friedman Foundation, which I understand is a sponsor for this event. Support the Independence Institute. If you're interested in our organization, voteontaxes.org. Let me know. We'll be happy to get you signed up for that. So thank you very much, and fight the good fight.